Racing motorcycles is not, I mean, it's just a way of life for me. I mean, it's what I know, it's what I've always done.
It all began right here at Donington Park in 1988, and 30 years later, the World Superbike Championship is as strong as ever. Sykes got his day off to a perfect start as he smashed his own pole position record. But can he now rewrite the history books and take an unprecedented 9th straight win here at Donington Park? Or will teammate Jonathan Rea spoil the party? We're about to find out, because it's time for World Superbikes Race 1 here in Donny. Here we go, overview of the circuit, 4 kilometres long, 2.5 miles, total of 12 corners, a fairly even split of left and right hand bends with 7 corners to the right hand side, and then 5 lefts, including turn 6 named after Kevin Schwantz. The first World Superbike race, as we said, was held here in 1988, had 48 races and 47 different podium finishes here in that time. The first sector starts as through Redgate, down Craner curves, and sector 2 begins with the old hairpin as we start to climb uphill towards Coppice. Then it's through Coppice and through the Fogarty S's for the third sector out on track. Then the final sector takes us through the Melbourne Loop and Goddards. That is your overview of the Donington circuit. In 2016 it was Tom Sykes who did the double here. The race lap record holder is Jonathan Rea from last year. Hello and welcome to a somewhat overcast Donington Park. The wind is blowing. And after a magical moment where everybody came together to honour Nicky Hayden with a minute's silence, everybody from racers to track personnel to the fans here all gathered on the start-finish straight for an absolutely moving tribute to the Kentucky kid who tragically lost his life at the beginning of this week. It's now time to go racing and honour him in the best way we can with absolutely fantastic action out on track. There you can see the Union Jack just holding up to the wind here, which is really picking up and could play a big factor in this race. My name is Harry Lloyd. Sitting alongside me is Stephen English. There you can see fans continuing to come in to Donington Park to try and get a glimpse of what will no doubt be a hard-fought affair between the likes of Tom Sykes, Jonathan Rea and Chaz Davies. Don't rule out the Ducati man there. You can see all those poles bending to the force of the wind. It's going to be a very tricky race if these sort of conditions continue there. You can see dark clouds overhead as well. There is a threat of rain. Of course, if it were to rain, it would be a flagged flag race. Everybody would have to come back in and change tyres, which, as we have seen in the past, does produce certainly a lot of drama. Hopefully it won't be a weekend of drama for that man there, Jonathan Rea, the reigning champion. He couldn't quite get one over on his teammate in qualifying, but starting second on the grid, absolutely fantastic spot to challenge number 66, Tom Sykes. Sykes, of course, so strong here in Donington Park, has taken 3 pole positions in a row now, taken 8 straight wins, and is going for an unprecedented 9th. But Jonathan Rea is determined to not let that happen. From the beginning of the year, even when they went testing, Jonathan Rea circled this race as the one that he wants to pull over on Tom Sykes. Here we can see riding style comparison through turn 1 as they go over that newly laid tarmac. There's a couple of bumps there which has forced riders to change their lines ever so slightly. As we saw in Superpole, no major effect on the lap times. Still very, very fast, as we were saying. This wind will have an effect almost certainly. Even on these big bikes, it's likely to batter them about a bit. As Davies did the battering of everybody else in Imola when he converted pole position to a fantastically dominant double. Ducati delight in Imola, it certainly was. He's going to have a tough time on his hands if he wants to take a double here, as both those Kawasaki's do look so strong. And when you throw in the likes of Lowe's, maybe even Leon Haslam, who had a bit of a crash in qualifying. Certainly not going to be an easy one if he wants to be up there fighting for victory.
Certainly not, Harry, and you can see down pit lane everyone just getting ready for the bikes to go out. You can see just at the front of the shot, Shaky Byrne, multiple British champion, a man that knows how to get the wins around Donington Park, but it's this man, Tom Sykes, that really knows how to get them in WorldSBK. The most successful rider here at Donington Park with 8 wins, and really, Harry, it is a who's who when you look down the list of winners here. Sykes with his 8, you can see Leon Camier, a former British champion, podium man here as well in WorldSBK. Just quite relaxed as the two boys get ready to head into the pit boxes. But Sykes is 1-8, Foggy 1-6 here. The likes of Scott Russell 1-5, and even Nori Haga as well, multiple winner here. And really, as I said, a who's who when you look down the list. Ben Spees did the double here in his title winning season. Hodges won twice, Tosland's won here. You've got Troy Bayliss as a former winner. And who's going to add their name to that title, to that tally of winners? Jonathan Ray, of course, did win here once, but out to do it again and get himself firmly back in command there. You can see Alex Lowe's bike down in the pit box, and Union Jacks galore across that Yamaha.
Yeah, it's a very British affair there down in the Crescent squad. Of course, Crescent are a UK-based team, and then with Lowe's, of course, being from the UK, the Union Jacks are proudly flying on his Yamaha and on his leathers as well. There you can see just on the belly pan a nice big Union Jack, and this shot should just show us, there we go, some beautiful custom leathers for Lowe's this weekend. Hopefully they bring him a bit of good luck in this race. He'll line up 4th on the grid, so right up where I expect him to be. And he hasn't, it's been a bit of a quiet weekend for him. No headline grabbing times, but some nice consistent runs, and certainly I think we could see him as a bit of a dark horse for the podium. Battling for the race win could be, a bit of a step too far, but with these dark clouds continuing to close in, we're taking a step into the unknown. That man there, Tom Sykes, looking nice and relaxed. There you can just see his engine usage. He's had 1 engine withdrawn out of the 7 they are allowed, and then has 3 currently in rotation, with 3 still sealed. Of course, if you do go over that engine allocation, then you do have to start from pit lane, which is far less than ideal. The Milwaukee Aprilia box, 6th place on the grid for the 3rd race in a row for that man there, Eugene Laverty. Very solid weekend for him after having come through Superpole 1.
Laverty struggled yesterday with the initial running in free practice 1 and free practice 2. Felt that the team went the wrong way with their settings, but overnight they've clearly made a step forward. Laverty, as you said, 6th fast, able to make it through from Superpole 1 into the Superpole 2 shootout. The key thing for Laverty is going to be whether or not he's able to build on this and keep it going over the course of a full race distance here at Donington Park. That's a 23-lap affair, and we've seen it time and time again where Laverty's able to make a great start, get into the fight at the front group, but then just fades during the race. But key weekend for Laverty, round 6th race round of the championship, and he really needs to see some progress there from the Aprilia.
Yeah, as we were talking about during practice, if you had told me that Eugene Laverty's best finish of the year would have been a 7th place before he came over, I would have been absolutely stunned and shocked that you would have even suggested that, Steve. But that is the reality, as we say, that Aprilia is struggling. This man here, Forres, he hasn't been struggling this year. He's been right up there fighting inside the top 5 or 6 almost every race. Had a great battle in race 2 in Imola with Marco Melandri there. You can see Forres just using a thumb brake. Thumb brake's getting more and more popular in both MotoGP and World Superbike. Tom Sykes, another notable name to be running a thumb brake in World Superbikes. There you can see this morning, much clearer skies, much bluer, and no doubt a fair bit less windy. Pit lane has opened. It will close in just under 5 minutes. So all the teams and riders now do have 5 minutes to leave and get up and formed on the grid. There we just saw Leon Haslam popping out. Marco Melandri about to put on his helmet and roll out of pit lane.
And Melandri, of course, former winner here in the World Superbike class. And you can see him just pointing to the 69 on his helmet. The two riders, of course, made their debuts together in the 2003 season in MotoGP. And Melandri, quite emotional over the course of the weekend when talking about Nicky Hayden, quite clear just how close that bond was. But Jonathan Rea, not really being challenged too much in terms of the championship standings this season. But there have been a few races where Rea's had to dig in very deep, most notably last time out, Harry, in Imola. But he's going to have to dig deep if he's to beat Tom Sykes around Donington Park. But he's looked like he's had good pace all weekend, especially on race rubber. But in the Super Pole session earlier on today, Tom Sykes able to smash the lap record.
Yeah, certainly it was Mr. Super Pole Tom Sykes back to his very, very best. There we see Taddy Mercado. He had a very solid start to the weekend to automatically get a berth in Super Pole 2. He'll start 12th on the grid, just behind Michael van der Mark and Leon Camia. Meanwhile, Davies will line up on the back of that front row in 3rd place, right next to his two great rivals, Sykes and Jonathan Rea. Those three really have been the class of the field in these last 2 seasons, and especially this year, it has more or less been a war between Jonathan Rea and Chaz Davies. But it looks like Tom Sykes is set to throw his hat into the ring this weekend at one of his favourite circuits anywhere in the world. There we can see the teammate of Nicky Hayden. Stefan Bridle, very difficult weekend, of course, for the Red Bull Honda squad after the unfortunate news about Nicky Hayden. But Bridle is soldiering on, determined to get a good result for the Kentucky kid. There is Lowe's in those very fancy Union Jack leathers there. You can just see Sylvain Guintoli, who was riding that Yamaha before, alongside Lowe's. Guintoli now moving over to the British Superbike Championship. Guintoli actually back in MotoGP last weekend for his home round in Le Mans to replace the injured Alex Rins. No MotoGP for this man here, though, Tom Sykes. He's proven he's a race winner, proven he's a world champion in the World Superbike class. Has also taken the title of Mr. Superpole off Troy Corser and has now firmly cemented himself as one of, if not the best qualifiers currently out on the grid. Of course, his first air quotes proper pole position of the year. He was awarded pole in Assen after Jonathan Rea's penalty. So this is the first one that he has earned by himself there. You can see those dark clouds hanging overhead. Very, very ominous as we ride on board with Chaz Davies. Just under 2 minutes until pit lane closes, and it does look like everybody has already left to make their way to the grid. There we just see Davies rolling up. Start, finish straight, getting pushed to his 3rd position on the grid. Another front row start for the Welsh rider. So far, his worst qualifying of the year was 5th place in Thailand for race 1. And otherwise, since then, he has more or less been on the front row ever since he got on pole in Aragon, of course. In Holland, he was 2nd. And I believe we have Steve, you're down there on the grid, I believe, with Sylvain Guintoli.
Yeah, Harry, down here with Sylvain Guintoli. And Sylvain, bit of a busman's holiday for you, but not too far from home.
No, not too far from home, so it's nice to go and come and say hello to the Superbike family, the World Superbike family. You know, I've been in this paddock for a long time, so it's nice to come and catch up with everybody before making my way to Mugello tomorrow. So yeah, really enjoying the day, and you know, like I said, catching up with a lot of familiar faces.
BSB season for you this year, but a couple of MotoGP outings as well. How was Le Mans?
Oh, Le Mans was fantastic. You know, this the MotoGP bike is beautiful. It's a great bike, so I really enjoyed it, and we're going to carry on now in German Barcelona and try you know, trying to improve the feeling. But yeah, really nice bike to ride.
Thanks, Sylvain. Best of luck next week.
Sylvain Guintoli, of course, a former World Superbike champion, that nail-biting year where he just took it in the last race. Now, as Steve said, in BSB, but getting a couple of run-outs in MotoGP as well. That man there, Chaz Davies, he got a MotoGP test just after doing the double in Imola. Has a bit of a reward from Ducati. No times released there, but it did seem like it was more of a reward than anything. There you can see the inconsistency that has seen Chaz Davies fall some 74 points behind Jonathan Rea. That crash and remount in Thailand, and then those DNFs in Aragon and in Assen really costing Davies this season. Otherwise, he's been there on the podium. He's taken 3 wins in the last 6 races. Yeah, as we say, the only time he finished off the podium was in Thailand when he crashed and then remounted after the red flag. And Steve, I believe you're now down there with the top Aprilia, Eugene Laverty.
Actually, it's Michael Laverty I'm down with here, Harry. And Michael, you're here working with Chaz again as a bit of a spotter, and with Eugene here as well. You've been able to take a good look at all the bikes.
Yeah, first time this year I've been able to make it to World Superbike round, just having a busy schedule, and yeah, it's the first time in 3 years of assisting Chaz here at Donington that I've seen him look as comfortable as he does this weekend. He's having to work a little bit harder than the guys in the Kawasaki's. I feel Johnny and Tom have it a little bit easier, but Chaz can fight the Ducati into submission a little bit and make it work. The team improved it a little bit for him overnight, and it looked easier to be consistent this morning, hit his marks, and kind of, he said the bike was more predictable. So I think he can take the fight to him today.
You know Donington as well as anyone. What's the big challenges here, and what effect does the wind have?
The wind actually has a lot of effect here. The slow wheelie corners out of Melbourne Loop, the wind gets under it and just pushes the front wheel almost under the grass. So if you're close to the white line and your anti-wheelie isn't quite working as good as you want to, it can catch you out. You have to be careful, especially at a coppice. That's airfield kind of direction with the wind heading towards the East Midlands Airport. So that side wind there can really catch you out. So you have to be careful. And but the Donington circuit as a whole is challenging because it's 2 different characters in one circuit. First half of the lap's nice, fast and flowing, and then the last half hard braking, hairpins, and yeah, you gotta have a compromising setup. So it's really challenging to get the best of both worlds, and it's a tough circuit.
Thanks, Mike.
Apologies there to the Laverty clan for confusing them. Of course, there are 3 Lavertys here this weekend, with Eugene racing, John Laverty helping him, and then Michael Laverty, the third of the brothers, helping Chaz Davies, who is his brother-in-law. It's all a bit complicated in the racing world. And Steve, I believe you're down there with Chaz now as well.
Chaz Davies, front row start, and as you said earlier on, it looks like you've made a step forward, but it's only going to be during the race once you know for sure.
Yeah, definitely. It looks like we've got some different conditions we're dealing with now. It's really, really windy, which always changes things. You've just got to figure it out and take the race as it comes on that front. But definitely did make a step overnight. I'm happy with the bike this morning. We'll just have to see if it's enough to stop the green train here.
Thanks, Chaz.
Thanks.
Stopping the green train is the goal, but it's that man currently chewing ahead of the green train. Tom Sykes on pole position. 39 pole positions, of course. That pole from Assen. Under a bit of debate about whether that counts as a pole position or not. The 2013 World Superbike World Champion looking to return to winning ways, as we said, trying to get an unprecedented 9th victory here at Donington Park. No rider in World Superbike history has ever had 9 straight wins at a single circuit. There's the other one of the Laverty clan, Eugene Laverty. Just making sure that the venting system on his helmet is all in the correct position for this race. It's mighty windy there, which will help the riders stay cool. We had a fantastically hot British summer's day here on Friday, but it is now a bit doom and gloom in the skies overhead. And as we said, there you can see the umbrellas just battering around in the wind. It's going to be a tricky one. As Michael Laverty was saying, watch out for the exit of turn 8, Coppice, and then the exit of turn 11, the Melbourne Loop. The wind is going to potentially play a big role there. And Steve, you're down on the grid. Just how bad is this wind?
Yeah, thanks, Harry. Just down here with Tommy Searle. And Tommy, a bit of a close race to home for you, but who are you here with?
I've come up with my friend Ed, but we're here to support Alex Lowe's and Johnny Ray. So they're my 2 guys out there, and looking for a good race for them.
What do you think of WorldSBK whenever you get to it? You got to a couple of rounds last year as well.
Yeah, I always like to get out. I train with Alex and Sam Lowe's at home, so really close to them, and they ride at the track with me with motocross and flat track. So as soon as I get to come and support them, I make the effort to come on.
Thanks, Tommy.
Thank you.
Tommy, of course, an MXGP rider. There is the other Lowe's twin out supporting his great friend Leon Haslam. Sam Lowe's, of course, racing for that Aprilia MotoGP effort, managed to pick up his first points of the year in Le Mans, and it was seeming pretty positive after he had a very productive test in Barcelona. Of course, wildcard Leon Haslam was up there challenging for the top 3 throughout most practice. There you can just see over the corner his father, Ron Haslam. Won a few races in his time, did Ron. Leon Haslam, of course, a former World Superbike race winner, former World Superbike title challenger as well. But yeah, he will start in 8th place. Has been looking very strong this weekend. Had a bit of a tip-off in qualifying, which definitely dented his performance. There's Leon Camier wearing a number 69 hat in honour of Nicky Hayden on the MV Augusta, starting in 10th place. Another pretty commendable performance for the British ride. Of course, his home round, as it is for a fair few of the boys on the grid. Steve, you're down there on the grid. Is anybody humming and hawing about tyres with the wind and the drop in temperature that it brings, or is everybody more or less set? One or two issues there getting Steve. Apologies. There is Michael Vandermark. He's running the number 69 on his helmet. Of course, Vandermark and Hayden, teammates last year in the 10 Carter squad.
Sorry, Harry. Leon Camier just down here on the grid, and the change of conditions, is it going to bring a change of tyre choice?
To be honest, we don't know. We're running with what we've been running all weekend, which is probably too cold for the tyre, but we don't have a lot of options at the minute. We don't have a lot of data, and also conditions have been warm all weekend, so this is a bit of a new for everyone. I think it depends if it rains or not. You know, it's looking pretty ominous at the minute, so we'll see what happens. But in that case, it's the same for everyone. It's a flag race. We have to change tyres and see what happens.
Is that good for you, Leon? You've had a couple of strong performances so far this season.
Yeah, in the wet conditions we've been good. We haven't really got a setting for a dry setting going to a wet setting, you know, when it's a predominantly dry bike. So we'll have to take it as it comes. Yeah, and also we lose a fair bit with the pit stop, so it's not an ideal situation for us now.
Thanks, Leon.
Definitely going to be a tricky one if the rains do come. Leon Camier is definitely one looking to the heavens to see what will happen. And as Camier said, it is much colder than it has been all weekend. So regardless of what the rain does, it's going to be a step into the unknown for all of the riders out there. There's Randy Krummenacker. The Swiss rider lines up in 14th on the grid. There you can see him with his girlfriend there, just waiting for a baby in there, as you can also see by the dummy pacifier around her neck. And Steve, I believe you're down there with somebody else now.
Yeah, Harry, just down here with Ron Haslam. And Ron, obviously you know this track as well as anybody, but Leon surprised a few people this weekend, do you think, with the pace he had yesterday?
Yeah, yesterday's pace was really good. We made a few wrong moves, I think, for the qualifying that made it too hard for him to, sort of get a result for the Super Bowl. But hopefully we've corrected all them, and first race we should see what we can do.
You know what the weather does around here better than anyone as well. What do you see happening in the course of the next hour?
I think we're okay. The wind's so strong, so I think the biggest problem is going to be the wind, and I think the wind will load the rain off, so we should be dry, but wind's a problem.
Thanks, Ron.
Ron Haslam, of course, former Grand Prix rider, now runs a race school here at Donington Park, has done more laps of this circuit than anybody else. You know, anytime you chat to anybody about Ron Haslam, you say, put him as a World Supersport wildcard, and he'll probably still be up there bashing elbows with Kenan Safwaglu. Alex De Angelis is definitely looking a bit chilly there down on the grid. De Angelis set to start from 15th on the grid, just ahead of local wildcard Jake Dixon, who is here with the Lee Hardy Racing team as a bit of a test, but Dixon isn't doing too bad. He's qualified ahead of this man here, Rafael De Rosa. Bit of a difficult return to World Superbikes for Rafael De Rosa. There you can see the American flag on his tear-offs with the 69 of Nicky Hayden. As we get set for 23 laps here of the Donington Park circuit. The wind is the word. Everybody more than a little concerned about what it'll do to temperatures and how it could affect the bikes, especially out of those slow corners. There is Jake Dixon, who we were talking about. Glenn Richards there, you can just see on the left-hand side, acting as his crew chief. Not too bad to start from 16th on the grid in your World Superbike debut. He is, of course, running a full BSB spec bike, which means no traction control and a lot of the other electronic aids removed. So Jake has definitely raised a couple of eyebrows here this weekend, and you definitely have to take about him. Ricky Russo here, he's looking to end his run of 5 straight DNFs in 2017. The Italian lining up in 20th on the grid, just ahead of Jezek, and then Anton Badavini, the lone rider on row 8 behind them. There you can see the 3-minute board as the safety car does leave 5 minutes until we are racing here at Donington Park. Hopefully the rain will hold, as we mentioned at the top of the broadcast. If it does rain, riders do have to come in and get their tyres changed. There's no two bikes here in World Superbike like in MotoGP. No quick hop over to the other one. The mechanics do have to get their hands a little bit dirty and get those tyres changed. And then, of course, it does become a bit of a gamble. Are you going to come in early? Are you going to come in late? It's always tense when it is a flag race. There, Jonathan Rea just having a quiet moment to himself, just trying to focus in. Currently leading the championship by 74 points. So no matter what happens here at Donington Park, he will leave as the World Championship leader. Roman Ramos, he lines up in 19th place. Already made 58 World Superbike starts. Doesn't seem like he has been around that long, but he is racking them up, and also racking up the points is Ramos, currently 11th in the championship standings, ahead of Bridle, ahead of Mercado, ahead of Savadori, ahead of a lot of big names is Ramos. Consistency really does breed results in motorcycle racing. Those three men on the front row of the grid have done a fair share of the winning, especially Davies and Jonathan Rea in the last season and a half. Who will come out victorious here in Donington Park? We're about to find out as tyre warmers are removed, trying to leave them on as late as possible due to that cold, biting wind. We have a fantastic view out of our commentary box right at the start. All the mechanics just crouched down there, waiting to rip off the tyre warmers and then scuttle off. There you can see the final members leaving the grid before we get racing here. 23 laps in Donington Park coming up right now with that man Tom Sykes on pole position. Welcome to Donington Park. 23 laps of this historic British circuit coming up as we look to honour the late Nicky Hayden. It is Tom Sykes on pole position ahead of Jonathan Rea. Chaz Davies in third. Lowe's there doing the Brits proud, making all British top four ahead of Melandri. Eugene Laverty there rounds out the second row of the grid.
Javi Forez on the third row ahead of wildcard Leon Haslam. Taddy Makata on the Aprilia also managing to get inside the top 10. Leon Camir, Michael van der Mark and Lorenzo Savadori make up the fourth row of the grid.
In leading row 5 is Jordi Torres, just missing out on a Superpole 2 transfer spot ahead of Randy Krumnacker and Alex De Angelis, two former Grand Prix riders. Then it's Dixon, Bridle and De Rosa.
And Ramos, Russo, Andre Jazik and Anton Badavini take up the rear of the field as the field moves away on its formation lap.
Here we go. Racing at Donington Park, just moments away, as we said, 23 laps. Watch out for the wind. It is absolutely blowing a gale here at Donington Park. According to Michael Laverty and Ron Haslam, the hot spots will be the exit of turn 8 as well as turns 11 and turn 12. Those slow corners where you can get a fair bit of wheelie. Of course, most of these bikes do have anti-wheelie control. Jake Dixon not so lucky running a full BSB spec bike.
Harry, we heard from down on the grid from Michael Laverty, a former MotoGP rider, just about how important it is to have those electronics set up perfectly here at Donington Park once the wind picks up. One thing that we do know for sure is it's 30 years of WorldSBK.
Yep, Donington Park hosting the inaugural round back in 1988. Tardozzi and Lucanelli secured one win each back then. Can Marco Melandri do his forebearers proud and make Italian history once again in going up there and fighting for victory? I think it's going to be very, very hard for Melandri to break the British domination we're currently seeing in World Superbikes.
Yeah, Melandri's won twice here at Donington Park. Two of those Italian wins to get them to their tally of 99. We've been waiting for a long time for them to get to that 100th win mark. But you can see here the field just coming up towards the grid. The tyre sheets in from Pirelli and pretty much the entire field using the same compound rear tyre, so they're all on the SC0 rear tyre, and then it's just a case of which front tyre you decide to use depending on your field. But as Leon Camir said, with the weather conditions having to change, we could be in that mixed ground between the tyre temperatures.
Here we go, the grid forming up, racing just seconds away here. Everybody in their grid spots, more or less. Leon Camir there, Kawasaki team standing up, waiting for the start of this race. Those Kawasaki's do start well. Turn your attention to the top left-hand corner of the screen where we will see the lights in just a few seconds. Tension high in the Ducati pit box as well. We wait. Looks like Anton Badavini may have lined up in the wrong grid spot. It looks like it is all go now. The man with the red flag will walk away. Here we go. 23 laps of Donington Park. Wait for the lights to come on, and then we soon will be racing. The lights go on. Here we go. This is for you, Nikki. Let's get it. A great start from Tom Sykes and from Jonathan Ray. A pretty solid launch from Chaz Davies as well, who fires his way into the lead through Redgate. Leon Haslam with a massive start, collides with Eugene Laverty, pushes Lowe's almost off track. Huge drama to start this race.
Yeah, Haslam from the middle of the third row, just getting down the inside there. And no fear from Haslam trying to get down there, but it looked like just pushed the other guys a little bit in too deep. You can see riding on board here with Jonathan Ray that Chaz Davies has managed to get down the inside into the old hairpin, and Tom Sykes just sliding all the way through there as well, through Starkeys to keep second.
Certainly this is what Davies has to do if he wants to try and, as he said, break that Kawasaki train. Here it is currently Ducati. A big moment there for Sykes, just as he got on the gas, it looked like.
Yeah, really easy for that to happen on the slight incline on the way up towards Coppice there, and you can see it still has them now through on Melandri, and Taddy McAdam with a great start as well from 9th on the grid. He's up into 6th.
And already that top 6 are starting to break away. It looks like Tom Sykes is trying to close in Chaz Davies, but we know that the Ducati can be pretty quick from the off. It looks like Lowe's has dropped way down the field. Lowe's down in 20th after that collision with Laverty and Haslam. There are a huge mistake there from Chaz Davies as he runs very, very wide, allowing Tom Sykes to close right up as those 3 green machines of Sykes, Ray and Haslam chase the number 7 Ducati.
Yeah, and you can see Davis just running in deep again into that last corner as well at Goddard's. Sykes able just to square it off and still get good drive on Davis, but you can see Leon Haslam up there in 4th position now as well. A little bit of a gap between himself and Jonathan Ray. It's going to be interesting to see if Haslam's able just to keep that gap and close in on these podium men.
Yeah, Jonathan Ray right on the back of Tom Sykes. Chaz Davies has opened up about 0.2 of a second. Jonathan Ray lines up a move through Coppice. A fantastic move there from the number 1 machine to get through on his teammates and slide into 2nd, trying to stop his great rival Chaz Davies from breaking away. Huge mistake there from Marco Melandri as he now drops down into 7th place after closing in so well on Haslam.
And that's one of the bravest moves you'll see from Jonathan Ray, but Tom Sykes answering straight back down the inside, but in too deep for Tom Sykes. He's going to be overtaken by Leon Haslam as well there. Sykes just trying to answer straight back and make a statement.
We saw Sykes make a statement to the press saying that Jonathan Ray was crashing on Friday because he was trying too hard to beat him. Maybe it's Tom Sykes who's trying a bit too hard now. Still 22 laps of this Donington Park circuit to go, and there's Davies, bit of an underdog, who is leading. Marco Melandri trying to get past Eugene Laverty after that massive mistake further back, but all eyes on the number 7. No, we're not in Imola. We've travelled north. We're in the United Kingdom. We're at Donington Park. Who expected a Ducati to be leading? Certainly not me. Slightly wider line again for Davies. Does allow Jonathan to close up a bit mid-corner, but it looks like it does provide pretty ample drive for the Ducati rider.
Yeah, great stuff from Davis, but you can see a big moment there for Jonathan Ray on the way into Goddard. He had both feet off the pegs, manages to collect it and keep 2nd place, but you can see Tom Sykes now starting to put some pressure onto Leon Haslam. Haslam, of course, won twice here in BSB at the start of the year, but up there running in the podium spots now as a wild card.
Yeah, there you just saw that big leg come out from Leon Haslam. Not only is that to help him turn, but it's certainly going to deter a rival or two from trying to come through. Chaz Davies with the fastest lap of the race so far, 1:28.094. We do have news that Jake Dixon has run across the gravel and rejoined. So pretty poor start to the race for the wild card, but great just to be in this race after a pretty solid qualifying effort as we continue to watch Sykes try and close in on Leon Haslam. Meanwhile, Davies and Jonathan Ray are breaking away at the front of this race. This is exactly what Davies needed to do. Put his head down and try and open up a bit of a gap and then just manage it. Meanwhile, Lowe's has managed to move his way up into 18th place after almost getting punted off track at turn 1.
Then you can see Sykes now just trying to get as close as he can to Haslam. Haslam always a difficult man to overtake under brakes, but Tom Sykes always the last of the breakers, really hard on the anchors. That's what makes it so difficult to overtake Sykes, but you can see here with Sykes, he's definitely starting to get a little bit impatient. You can see that gap developing between Haslam and Jonathan Ray, just down the inside now for Sykes. Good move, good and tidy on the way in. He's able to block off the line there. Haslam, good move from Sykes to get back into 3rd.
Absolutely classic Donington Park move through the Melbourne Loop. Does Haslam respond? No, he can't quite do it through Goddard's. He'll try and stick in nice and close behind Tom Sykes. Meanwhile, Davies has opened up half a second on Jonathan Ray, who in turn has about half a second back to his teammate as Davies once again sets another fastest lap of the race with a 1:27.778. Michael Landry has his hands full trying to get past that man there, Eugene Laverty, as he chases Taddy Mercado for top Aprilia honours and a top 5 spot.
Yeah, we're on lap 4, and that pace from Davis is only a 1/10 of a second off the lap record, so don't be surprised to see that lap record go during the course of this race. But you can see Marco Melandri, he needs to get through on these guys. In behind Eugene Laverty, who's been able to close on Taddy Mercado. Of course, Taddy Mercado, the top Aprilia in this race right now, running inside the top 5. Good stuff for Mercado after that strong start.
Yeah, certainly testament to the skills that Mercado does have, especially after missing those first 2 rounds. Marco Melandri, as we said, having a very difficult time getting past both those Aprilias. It looks like that little battle there for 5th is closing up nice and tight now. Eugene Laverty with a bit of a sniff. Leon Camier, they're getting pretty loose on the rear as he tries to close in Michael van der Mark. Bit of a look there for Marco Melandri, can't quite do it. Watch out, Michael van der Mark is coming, has closed down that gap to those riders ahead by about 0.2 of a second as Davies continues to try and get away at the front, try and break away from the Kawasaki train.
And it's 0.6 of a second between Davis and Jonathan Ray right now, and then behind them it's probably another 1.2 seconds, 1.3 seconds to Tom Sykes. So the G2 out in front have broken away from Sykes. Now the key question is going to be, over these 20 laps, is Sykes able to close back in? And you can see Davis with the 3rd fastest lap in a row for Chaz Davis. Still just outside that lap record pace, but 3 consecutive 27s as well. Good pace there from Chaz Davis at the start of this race. He was again able to eke out another 1/10 of a second, 9/10 of a second between himself and Jonathan Ray now.
Yeah, despite the cool conditions, he is only a 1/10.5 of a second or so outside the outright race lap record set by that man there, Jonathan Ray, last year. So breakneck speed from all of these boys at the front. Leon Haslam looks to have been dropped by Tom Sykes, but it looks like Sykes' chances of victory may be pretty far from over because he's now 1.7 seconds off Chaz. He's now 2.5 seconds off Chaz Davies, sorry, 1.7 seconds off his own teammate. That's a very, very big gap to try and bridge, even with 19 laps left.
Yeah, and these 2 guys at the front. Davis has finished on the podium here 3 times in the last 4 races. Jonathan Ray, of course, a former winner here. So the key thing is going to be whether or not, as the tyre starts to drop off, if Sykes is able to use his speed around Donington Park to close that gap. You can see how fast Jonathan Ray was through the foggy S's there, really getting all the way across the curb on the way into the S's at turn 9, and it looks like he was able to close up quite a lot on Davis there. 1/4 of a second pulled out of him in just those couple of corners. And you can see the gap between Haslam and Tom Sykes now round about a second as well. So Sykes just pulling away from Leon Haslam behind this fight for the lead.
This is certainly building towards a monumental scrap for victory between Davies and Jonathan Ray. Jonathan Ray just marginally faster than Chaz that last lap. The first time that Chaz hasn't set the fast lap of the race so far. Meanwhile, for the British fans, Lowe's is now up into 14th spot and rapidly closing in on Ramos in 13th. Damage limitation for Lowe's, has to try and get inside that top 9. Here we go, replay of the start. Solid start for Tom Sykes, but watch out for Chaz Davies, the number 7. Also, have a look at Leon Haslam as he dives up the inside there. Very ambitious line, forces Eugene Laverty to stand up, gets pushed wide. Lowe's very lucky not to go onto the grass.
Yeah, all those riders really with nowhere to go. We'll just look back from Tom Sykes' bike, and you can see Melandri with a great start from the second row, but it's all about Leon Haslam that you're going to see down that left-hand side of the screen. You can see Haslam really in a lot hotter than everyone else, and they're just able to barge his way down into that leading group. On board now with Jonathan Ray from second on the grid. As you can see, 2 good starts from the 2 Kawasaki men. Sykes able to convert that pole into the lead on the entry to turn 1, but Chaz Davis with just a super start once again from Davis. We've seen this time and time again with Davis able to pick up places off the line.
Absolutely brilliant from Davis, but he is currently being closed down by Jonathan Ray. In that second half of the lap, Jonathan has closed in by about 0.2 of a second once again. That Kawasaki working so well through the tight and twisty part of Donington Park, as we heard from Michael Laverty on the grid. Donington really a circuit of 2 halves, that fast and flowing first half as we cut to the Ducati box. Tension high there as they wait to see what their man, the number 7 of Chaz Davies, can do. Can he hold off Jonathan Ray and potentially close in 5 more points? Meanwhile, Michael van der Mark, something has happened to Laverty here as Laverty's now far behind Michael van der Mark. Meanwhile, Melandri's gotten through and is now harassing Taddy Mercado for 5th. But Michael van der Mark is the man on the move, matching the pace of about Leon Haslam. Up there in 4th place is the Dutch rider.
Yeah, and that Yamaha's got good pace around Donington Park once again this year, and Vandermark able to take good use of that to move into the top 7 and try and close in on Marco Melandri. It's still Taddy Mercado holding off Melandri, and that's really impressive from the Argentine rider. We know how much that Ducati, how strong it is, and Taddy Mercado to be able to run inside the top 5, really impressive. You can see Vandermark just on the way into the loop, gets down the inside, typical move at Donington Park there, just get on the brakes, make a block pass, good stuff from Vandermark.
Eugene Laverty may have to call on both of his brothers after this race because he is getting beaten up here. First that move with Haslam, then with Vandermark. Watch out for Forrest, he's coming as well. 3 abreast as Lowe's is on a charge up the inside of the number 32 of Savagori. Now he has Jordi Torres in his sights. Torres currently in 11th place, and Lowe's absolutely flying, just like the Union Jack.
Yeah, and Lowe's pace over the last few laps since he's been able to get his head down after that instant at the start, and you can see a moment there for Lowe's.
Chaz Davies is down yet again. He crashes out of the lead. Jonathan Ray moves back into lead. Another mistake for Chaz Davies. Was it the wind that caught his front wheel, or was he just pushing too hard? We've seen this so many times this year. Crash at turn 12, one of the hot spots Michael Laverty told us to watch out for Davies. He has rejoined. He's down in 14th place. Maybe he can grab onto the back of Lowe's. He's now down in 15th as Stefan Bridle sails past him.
Yeah, it's so easy to lose the front end on the way into this. You can see that overlap bump. Davis hits it, puts him offline, and then there's just more and more bumps as the track drops away from you. Davis just on the wrong line, wrong speed, and just an unforced error there. But you can see just runs across that bump, and really from that point on, you're a passenger towards the accident really for Davis. You have to turn in at some stage, and unfortunately for Davis, just loses the front end. And like we've seen so often around here this weekend, it's a big penalty for a small mistake. But you can see Jonathan Ray, he's going to take advantage of that. Ray's with a 2-second lead now, and he pulled out 0.2 of a second last time around on Tom Sykes. Leon Haslam now into the points on the wild card Kawasaki, and Haslam's got round about 3 seconds margin, 2.5 seconds margin to Taddy Mercado, so it could be a really good homecoming here for Leon Haslam from the middle of the 3rd row in the grid. You can see Tom Sykes now.
Oh, a huge moment there for Jonathan Ray under braking. We've seen him get both his feet off the pegs, with the bike just snapping around underneath him yet again.
Yeah, and that's the 2nd time, as you said, Harry, that we've seen that, maybe even the 3rd time in these opening 9 laps of the race, and Jonathan Ray really pushing as hard as he can. The gap now to Tom Sykes, 1.7 seconds. So with Tom Sykes on a charge, you can't really leave it where there's much margin for error for you, but Jonathan Ray there, very lucky to stay on board. And you can see Leon Haslam, he's recovered well from that crash in Superpole to be able to get up into the podium spots, and Marco Melandri now trying to recover and close in on Taddy Mercado.
Exactly, this now becomes a battle for 4th, as we see Chaz Davies now fighting with Krumnacher, De Rosa and Stefan Bridle for the last couple of points. It's once again damage limitation for Chaz Davies, but you have to say any slither of hope he had of fighting for this championship is now well and truly gone, as right now if the race were to finish as is, Jonathan Ray would open up an 80-point lead on Tom Sykes and a 99-point lead over Davies.
Yeah, you'd have to say it, that Davis's championship hopes are up in smoke at this stage, but he's just going to try and smoke through the field now. He gets down the inside of De Rosa. Lowe's has moved up into 10th position as well, and since recovering from that incident at turn 1, Lowe's pace has consistently been quicker than pretty much everyone except for the podium men. Even last time around he was quicker than Taddy Mercado, Marco Melandri and Michael Vandermark. So back into the top 10 for Lowe's. But you can see here at the front it's the number 1 from Jonathan Ray, and again just a little bit unsettled on the way into that Goddard's corner there for Jonathan Ray. The gap last time around was just under 1.7 seconds, and it's now 1.3 seconds, so 0.4 of a second pulled in there by Tom Sykes. And Sykes still able to run inside those 27s, and just pulls out another 0.9 on Leon Haslam. Haslam 7 seconds behind the race leader.
I may have certainly spoken too soon when I said Sykes' race was over. He is now on a charge, trying to close in his teammate Taddy Mercado, once again holding up Marco Melandri. Pretty similar to what we saw with Forres and Melandri. Melandri having a bit of difficulty passing people this year, which is not something that we're used to saying about Marco Melandri previously. Melandri definitely one to always go for a bit of a lunge, no matter how ambitious it was. But as we were saying, Steve, fantastic stuff from the number 36, Taddy Mercado here. Also watch out for Michael Vandermark. He's about a second off these two, but if they keep roughing each other up, then there's the Dutchman just at the back of your screen. He could potentially see himself move up into 4th. Of course, if you finish 4th in race 1, you do start in pole position for race 2, so we could see Taddy Mercado start from pole for the first time ever in his World Superbike career.
And as you said, Harry, getting back into that top 10 is crucially important. That's why it's so important for Davis to make sure he finishes inside that top 10 and the top 9, and he's able to get a good grid slot for tomorrow's race. But you can see Taddy Mercado defending well here from Marco Melandri.
Meanwhile, the gap at the front does continue to close by a 10th here, a 10th there. Not much closer for Marco Melandri and Taddy Mercado because it can't really get much closer. Melandri right on the rear wheel of Taddy Mercado, but the Argentinian riding a beautiful race. There you can see the other half of the Mercado family. Very, very tense in the box. What a great ride from Taddy. He really can't have pulled him off as Marco Melandri has a sniff up the inside at Redgate. Slides through with ease. Can Taddy respond? He does. He has a look up the inside. Can he do anything into Hollywood? Oh, a huge slide there from Marco Melandri as he gets on the power down through Craner curves. Taddy Mercado still hanging on to the back of the experienced Italian, but it looks like Marco Melandri has broken free and has now opened up just a couple of bike lengths. Meanwhile, the gap at the front now under a second. Here we go. It's all out war in KRT.
Yeah, and a great move there from Melandri, as you said, Harry, over that new asphalt where he's been complaining about the ripples on the track. He's able to make that move, and it looks like further down the order, Lowe's was able to make a similar move on Eugene Laverty on the way into turn 1 as well. Javi Fares, the next man to be targeted by Lowe's, but you can see that Tom Sykes certainly has target lock here on Jonathan Ray. He's been able to close that gap considerably. It's down to 9/10 of a second now. Just as they come through the next sector point, it's down to 7/10 of a second. Last time around, Sykes was 4/10 of a second faster, and he's really just closing in on Jonathan Ray here. Jonathan, on the way into this final corner at Goddard's, we've seen him have 3 or 4 really big moments on the way into it. Right on board with him. Let's see what he looks like from the onboard shot, but you can see again just taking that late apex to make sure you're able to hook it up right for the exit. But as they come across the line, 28.2 from Ray, 27.9 from Sykes. 6/10 of a second is the gap now.
Tom Sykes now within half a second of Jonathan Ray. He can smell blood in the water. He's closing in on his teammate. As we said, no rider has ever won 9 straight races at a single circuit before in World Superbike history. Can Tom Sykes become the first? Certainly based on these first few sectors, you have to assume he's going to give it his best crack. The gap now down to 4/10 of a second. Jonathan Ray just trying to hang on at the front of this race, but his Kawasaki looking a lot more unstable than that of his teammate Tom Sykes right behind him.
Yeah, it's not often over the last couple of years we've been able to say Sykes looks like he's the more comfortable of the Kawasaki riders, but he's been able to bridge that gap so easily with, you know, 1/4 of a second, 1/3 of a second a lap. And he was 2 seconds back only 7 laps ago, and now he's right there with Jonathan Ray. And you'd have to say, looking like he's very much capable of making the moves. You can see he just closes in on the braking into the foggy S's. But Tom Sykes, we saw him make a move on the way into the Melbourne Loop, and we'll see what he's able to do whenever he wants to pick his place to overtake Jonathan Ray. You can see just how much more speed that Sykes has, how much more confidence he has under the brakes into the Melbourne Loop, into Goddard's. As we said, this is where Ray's struggled a few times. We're right on board with Jonathan Ray. Looking back at Tom Sykes, you'd have to say over the next couple of laps, probably not going to be Tom Sykes behind.
Oh, certainly Tom Sykes is on a charge. The gap now down to just 1/10 of a second. Meanwhile, Lowe's, what a recovery. Now in 8th place, just 1 position separating him from his teammate. Unbelievable stuff from the number 22. A great recovery after that unfortunate incident. You'd have to say he'd probably be right up there fighting with Leon Haslam, the man who did cause that incident, which forced him off track. Fighting for 3rd. Haslam looking pretty safe in 3rd place on his World Superbike return as the big shoulders of Tom Sykes continue to close in on Jonathan Ray. They're now neck and neck, just a couple of bike lengths between them.
Yeah, and you can see the progression of that gap. Sykes able to take 4/10, 3/10, 4/10 of a second out of Jonathan Ray in the last 3 laps. So rare, as we say, to have seen Jonathan Ray pulled in like this from Sykes with a 2-second lead. You'd have to imagine, and you can see just again that leading Kawasaki, just a little bit of movement over those bumps on the way into Coppice. Tom Sykes just looking rock solid there, and you'd have to say it just looks like he's going to be able to pick his opportunity to get through. Jonathan Ray just hanging out that left leg, trying to get that bike turned into the S's, but Sykes just looking comfortable.
Yeah, exactly. Tom Sykes, as I say, looking so cool, calm and collected, not trying to show Jonathan Ray a wheel just yet, just trying to close in and wait for Jonathan Ray maybe to run a little bit wide. Doesn't want to do anything silly. We still do have 11 laps to go. As we heard, that wind has been battering these bikes around. Chaz Davies fell early in the race and is now up into 13th spot, just ahead of Lorenzo Savadori, just behind Roman Ramos. Davies now up into 12th, has about a 2-second gap to close in on Eugene Laverty, who's currently in 11th place, as Tom Sykes continues to just stalk his teammate. And for the first time in the last couple of laps, Jonathan Rea actually set a faster lap than Tom Sykes. Jonathan responding and going 0.2 of a second faster than Sykes. There you can see a 128.3 versus a 128.5 from the two Kawasaki riders.
Yeah, so Rea able to stem the bleeding there, but let's see what he's able to do over the next couple of laps as well. Maybe Jonathan Rea just trying to strategize his way through this race. We've seen time and again, Rea always adaptable over the course of a race. Maybe he's now figured out just how to adapt to how the bike's handling, how the wind is affecting it as well. We heard on the grid, Harry, just how critical the wind can be around here.
Yeah, it certainly does have a big effect. Looks like Jonathan Rea ran a bit wide there, which again allows Tom Sykes to close up that gap, sort of fluctuating around 0.2 of a second. We'll see Sykes no doubt make up a fair bit of time here down on the brakes into the Fogarty S's. Both those Kawasaki's working so well through that third sector on track. But here comes Tom Sykes blasting past his teammate up the inside at the Melbourne Loop, hard on the brakes. Nice clean move there on his teammate, forcing wide. Jonathan Rea has a sniff back up the inside, but Tom Sykes puts his bike exactly where the number one wants to be.
Yeah, absolutely super drive on the way out of the Foggy S's there, but in a bit too deep into Goddard's. Rea's going to be able to get back down the inside. And Sykes going to try and accelerate now on the way back, but Rea able to make that move after the mistake from Sykes. Davis is now up into 11th, closing in on that top 9, needs to get in there so that for the grid reshuffle he's inside those front 2 rows of the grid.
That will be the only ray of sunshine for Chaz Davies on this otherwise cloudy day, is that he will probably be starting ahead of those two men there as they continue to duke it out. Still 9 laps to go. We had a bit of a hint of a battle there. Sykes so strong out of the Fogarty S's in those final couple of corners. Could that be a dress rehearsal for the last lap, or will Jonathan Rea now get a wriggle on and try and break away at the front from his teammate? 0.2 of a second currently separating them as they make their way through turn 7, charging towards Coppice.
Yeah, and just behind this, we're seeing on the timing tower the Van der Mark's being able to get through on Taddy Mercado on this lap as well. So Van der Mark on the Yamaha into the top 5. Taddy Mercado, though, still running inside the top 6. He's got about 1.2 seconds margin to Leon Camier, so good stuff there from Mercado. You can see good stuff here from Tom Sykes as well, trying to close in. This is where he was really strong last time around, not quite as good drive as what he had on the previous lap. Interesting to see if Rea just made a slight mistake on the way into the S's, because the drive that Sykes had was so much more significant than what we saw from Rea.
Meanwhile, Jake Dixon has gone into the pits. Not sure what that's for. He was circulating in 22nd place, but right now we are fixated on the battle here. Tom Sykes continuing with the tow rope attached to Jonathan Rea. That gap never extending to more than 0.2 of a second. We know that Sykes has seemingly been getting better drive out of a couple of key places out on track than his teammate.
Yeah, we talked about Taddy Mercado being inside the top 6. Eugene Laverty just falling like a stone once again, as we've seen a few times this season. Laverty now down to 13th, with Roman Ramos able to get through on him.
There you can see 3rd on the grid. He was in 1st, but then on lap 8 he dropped down to 17th place. Chaz Davies once again falling while leading the race. Now trying to get past Jordi Torres and his fellow Ducati rider Forres, which would put him in the top 9 and would see him start on the front 2 rows of the grid. Still 8 laps to go here around Donington Park. It looks like out the front, Jonathan Rea has responded to open up that gap just a 0.3 of a second over his teammate. Almost identical lap times last time around for the 2 KRT riders.
Yeah, mid-28s for both the Kawasaki riders, and down the field you can see Leon Haslam's pace starting to drop off. He's now into the 29th. He's got a comfortable gap behind him. He's not going to be able to catch the 2 leading Kawasaki's, so Haslam settling in for a podium finish here on his return to WorldSBK as a wildcard. You can see Tom Sykes not making the move down the inside into the Melbourne Loop, but this is clearly the favoured overtaking spot for Sykes. We saw his move on Marco Melandri, able to get down the inside, keep a tight line and block his rival.
And the drive he gets out of the Fogarty S's just seems to be able to surpass Jonathan Rea. He's able to close that gap from about 0.2 of a second, able to immediately halve it just based on that drive out of turns 9 and 10.
Yeah, and this is absolutely great, Harry. This is what we've been waiting for between the 2 Kawasaki riders over the last couple of years. They haven't really had too many on-track fights. They did here last year with Tom Sykes coming off the batter, and you can see just a replay of Sykes as he comes through that through the Foggy S's. And as you said, just different style through there compared to his teammate, but he's been more and more comfortable than Johnny in that section of the lap, and Sykes riding really well. This is where, as we said, he was able to make that move down the inside of Jonathan Rea. Leon Haslam, though, coming from 8th on the grid, makes that strong start, barges his way down the inside, but he's been able to put the Pachetti up there in the podium spots.
Yeah, great return to World Superbikes for Leon Haslam. This is exactly what he wanted to do upon his return, is to try and be up there on the podium, try and prove he still has the pace to be in World Superbikes.
Still has the pace to be in the championship. It's just a case about trying to find the right ride, is what Leon Haslam said. But this is definitely going to put him into that shop window. You can see just sliding on the way through Coppice there. Chaz Davis has been able to get through on Jordi Torres, so he should be able to make a move on the fellow Ducati there of Xavi Forés in the next couple of laps and move himself into that top 9. You can see Melandri, Van der Mark, Camille, and as we said, a great recovery from Lowe's to get up into 7th place now as well. And Lowe's pretty much the only rider able to match the pace of the 2 Kawasaki's out in front over the last few laps, now with Haslam having wound it back and just settling for that podium.
There we go, once again back to the battle out the front. From the timing screens, it does seem like Jonathan Rea has maybe a 10th or 2 in him in the first half of the lap. Stefan Bradl there, unfortunately having to pull in to the pits. Disaster for Bradl, who was up there fighting for a couple of points. There he is, back in the box, the team just checking the tyres. Not the weekend that Stefan Bradl was hoping for, of course, going out there to try and honour his teammate Nicky Hayden. But these two men out the front are doing absolutely fantastically to honour Nicky Hayden as they have a cracking battle out here. Meanwhile, Chaz Davies is up into 9th place, so is now provisionally on the front 2 rows of the grid for race 2.
Yeah, and Harry, we talked about Nicky Hayden's never give up on the flags and on his helmets, but you can see Chaz Davis never giving up as well, getting himself through into the 9th position, the crucial top 9 to be able to put himself into a good position to move up onto that 2nd row of the grid for tomorrow's race 2. But you can see Tom Sykes taking that very different line on the way into the foggy S's compared to his teammate. We got 5 laps to go when they complete this lap, and Tom Sykes now trying to get down the inside once again, and Jonathan Rea barges through. You can see Sykes just snaking on that front end, able to make the move, able to make it stick. Is he going to have the same mistake on the way into Goddard's that he had when he previously took the lead, or is Sykes going to be able to keep it under control, keep it composed? You can see Jonathan Rea, he's going to try and get down the inside there, Rea. And
Tom Sykes slamming the door in his face there, just killing any drive that Jonathan Rea had. Tom Sykes able to open up 0.3 of a second with that move. Can Sykes now break away? He was 7/10 of a second faster than his teammate that last lap, and look at that already. He's off, just a black dot in the distance as we head down the Craner curves.
Yeah, Sykes, 8 wins in a row here at Donington, trying to win that 9th in a row, and he's making a great job of it in this race to be able to bridge that gap, put Jonathan Rea under pressure. It's not often that you manage to see riders put Rea under that amount of pressure for half a race, but Tom Sykes able to take advantage of the pressure and move through on his Kawasaki teammate. Further down the field, Lorenzo Savadori's moved through on his Milwaukee Aprilia teammate Eugene Laverty, down to 14th position and only 2 points in P14 for Laverty. He's got a comfortable gap to Krummenacher, but nothing comfortable here for Jonathan Rea, as we'll see Tom Sykes just come down the inside on the way into the Melbourne Loop. Good move by Sykes.
Yeah, as we said, absolutely classic Donington Park move. Sykes practiced that before once earlier in the race. No danger of either of them coming off there. Nice clean move, as you say. The first person you have to beat is your teammate, but certainly taking out your teammate can be quite costly. There we see Tom Sykes' side of the garage. Tension pretty high there, everybody a bit worried, and it looks like Jonathan Rea has either eased off or is having some sort of problem. Now 1.5 seconds back on his teammate.
Yeah, Rea will know that he just doesn't have the pace to fight with Sykes. Settle for your 20 points and move on to fight another day tomorrow. So the 2 Kawasaki riders out in front. We've seen the 2 Milwaukee Aprilia riders trade places further down for 13th. It looks like Van der Mark and Lowe's on the 2 Yamahas will be the next 2 teammates that should be involved in a bit of a scrap with one another.
Yeah, really compelling stuff from Lowe's to recover, to be fighting with his teammate after getting pushed so wide out in that first corner. Of course, both the Yamahas provisionally on the front row for race 2, and with the pace that Lowe's has shown, that front row start could be the boost he needs to really challenge for the podium. Right now he is challenging his teammate for 5th place, just a 10th of a second between them. But now 3 seconds clear of his teammate is Tom Sykes, absolutely gripping it and ripping it here in Donington Park. Meanwhile, Leon Haslam is 7 seconds back on Jonathan Rea, but is actually closing in. The gap going from 11.2 to 10.6 in those first 2 sectors. I still think that could probably be a bridge too far with just 4 laps to go. It is now down to 9.9 seconds. Maybe a problem for Jonathan Rea. He's losing a lot of time here.
He is losing a lot of time, Harry, but it's going to be interesting to see what happens in the next 2 laps. Maybe if Jonathan has some sort of massive tyre problem, it could be allowing the door to open up there for Leon Haslam.
You can see the live championship standings, 255 for Jonathan Rea, which would put him 70 points clear of his teammate Tom Sykes and 87 points clear of that man there, Chaz Davies. Now a lonely ride in 9th place is about 4 seconds behind Camilla.
Haslam and Rea using the same tyre choice for today's race, so you'd imagine that they won't be having too much of a difference between them, both of them using the same Kawasaki's. But you can see Chaz Davies now into 9th position, trying to close that gap on Leon Camille. It's around about the 4-second mark. But speaking of Mark van der Mark's been overtaken by Lowe's there for 5th as well. So good recovery from Lowe's. Next man he's targeting is Marco Melandri. It's 1-2.
Jonathan Rea's gone down! An absolutely massive crash there at Craner Curves. His bike absolutely destroyed, crashes out a second. Must have had an issue there. Very much game on now for Tom Sykes. That promotes Marco Melandri up onto the podium. There's not going to be much left. He does check the tyre there. He was clearly having some sort of issue with the rear Pirelli tyre there. Straight away checks it. He's up, walking okay. His leathers are pretty scuffed. But the Alpenstar suit there doing its job to protect Jonathan from a classic Donington Park crash. Here we go. What happened? Oh, just stepped around on him. A very, very strange crash to have right there. And there you can see the Kawasaki just tumbling through the gravel. The first mistake we've seen from the reigning champion all year. And it may not have been of his own doing, as the rear end is just about to let go there and flick him off.
Yeah, you tend to see that sometimes down Craner, where just the momentum of the bike, if you're on the gas, can cause that there, just that transition from left to right. Very difficult for you. You can see the message there just saying an 11-second gap for Tom Sykes. It's Leon Haslam up in second, Jonathan Rea down and out at the bottom of Craner Curves into the old hairpin. Luckily, the world champion is up and walking away, but that's a big disappointment there for Jonathan Rea. Leon Haslam able to elevate himself up into second position. Now the key thing is going to be that gap behind Leon Haslam between Marco Melandri and Alex Lowe's. We haven't seen a non-Ducati rider or Kawasaki rider on the podium this year. Jonathan Rea already on the way back into pit lane with 2 laps to go.
And with Rea crashing out, it means he will start 10th for race 2. So he starts as far down the field as he usually does in race 2, but without any of the points that go along with it. The championship now just 50 points between Rea and Sykes if the race were to finish like this. Just 1.5 laps left to go. Lowe's is within touching distance of Melandri, 1.7 seconds. Their lap time is pretty comparable that last lap. Melandri has to be very careful not to make any mistake, or we could see our first non-Ducati or Kawasaki man on the podium. There are your championship standings, 66 points back to Davies, and only 50 points behind is Tom Sykes. Of course, 25 points for a win. So another mistake, or another issue, I should say, for Jonathan Rea. And this championship is well and truly back on between the 2 teammates.
Yeah, 66 points back to Davis, but it's all about number 66 here today with Tom Sykes just about to start the last lap of the race. And it's been a great recovery from Sykes to get himself back to the front of the field.
Yeah, Lowe's closing a couple attempts on Marco Melandri, still a second back as they make their way towards the line. It's going to be a pretty lonely ride for Tom Sykes, but that's exactly how he would have liked it, as he's set to rewrite the history books here in Donington Park. On his way to taking an unprecedented 9th straight victory here at Donington Park. 16.3 seconds ahead of Leon Haslam, who in turn is 2.7 seconds clear of Marco Melandri in 3rd. Can Lowe's potentially close a second in the last lap? Who's 7/10 of a second faster than Melandri, so it looks like it could just be a gap too far. Chaz Davies now up to 8th place after falling early in the race, crashing at what was, I believe it was turn 7 where Davies fell early in the race.
Yeah, and at least for Davies, he'd be able to start in the middle of that second row if things stay as they are. Gives him a good chance for tomorrow's race for Tom Sykes. He's going to have to start from the back of the 3rd row if he gets through to the end of this lap, and Sykes will be more than happy with that. 9 wins in a row. Of course, in World SBK now for race 2, the race winner from race 1 starts 9th on the grid.
He has already written the history books with 9 straight wins. There we go. We just see Tom Sykes just shaking his head you know, cheering himself on for this final corner. Just Goddard's separates him from victory. Here we go, we watch the number 66 coming through the final corner. Just a couple of meters separate him from the history books. Tom Sykes wins race 1 here in Donington Park. The number 66 is back on top here in World Superbikes. He pumps his fist at his team.
And one of the best wins that you'll see from Tom Sykes. Fought hard, dug deep, and got through to the front of the field. But you can see Leon Haslam there. Big wheelie from Haslam across the line. Second place for the man. And Lowe's has managed to get through into third ahead of Melandri.
Huge drama on the last lap there. Hopefully we can get a replay of that one. Take a bow. Alex Lowe's ends the run of Kawasaki and Ducati. Alex Lowe's out of nowhere ahead of Melandri. Van der Mark in 5th. Kamiya up there in 6th. Tani Mikado in 7th. Incredible results there. Davies rallies to take 8th ahead of Torres. Flores completes the top 10. Ramos in 11th ahead of Savadori. Laverty dropped down to 13th. The Union Jacket's usually a bit of a curse. It looked like it was going to be a curse for Lowe's there. It turned out to be a bit of a blessing as he absolutely flew wearing his country's flag on his back. As we said, a 1.2 second gap when that last lap began, and Lowe's ended up finishing half a second ahead of Melandri. It looks like here's the move. Melandri runs onto the grass, seemingly just running wide. As we heard from Michael Laverty, maybe the wind pushing Melandri off circuit, allowing Lowe's to just slip through. Swings and roundabouts. The world putting itself back on balance. Bad luck for Lowe's in the first corner, but good luck for Lowe's in the last corner as an issue allows him to take his first podium of the year. Absolutely unbelievable stuff for the number 22. What a comeback, and that Crescent Yamaha team are absolutely beaming. In fact, that's Lowe's first podium since race 2 in Thailand back in 2015 when he was still on the Suzuki. Over a year of waiting for Lowe's, almost a year of waiting for Tom Sykes as he returns to the top step of the podium. Disaster for his teammate and for his rival Chaz Davies as he now takes a 16-point lead over Davies in their battle for second and closes in his teammate, taking out 25 points out of his lead. This is, of course, Tom Sykes' first victory since race 2 in Laguna Seca. There it is. 9th win in a row at Donington Park. The most successful rider at this track and constantly rewriting the history books here in World Superbikes. Mr. Super Bowl back to being Mr. Race winner. Unprecedented 9 straight wins as he waves to the crowd, soaking that one in. We're getting, yeah, there we go, smoking that rear Pirelli tyre for all the fans there. Just a little bit of a burnout as he pumps his fist in celebration. Can he do it tomorrow from the 9th row of the grid? We've seen Sykes make some brilliant starts this year. He'll need another one this weekend if he wants to make it 10 in a row. Look at Leon Haslam. You'd think he'd won the race with how excited he is. There's Sam Lowe's congratulating his great mate Leon. No doubt Lowe's now running to congratulate the other Lowe's as he returns to the podium for the first time in almost 2 years. There's the Pacetti squad. They get their first podium of the year in the World Superbike class. Putting their faith in Leon Haslam paying off massively, as I believe that is the best ever result for Pacetti. Look, tears in the eyes of Lowe's. Who would have thought he could have done that one? You'd think he'd won the race with how many people are down there to congratulate him. No doubt that'll be one of the most special moments of his life here as he recovers from getting punted off track down in 20th to take his first podium since 2015. His team going absolutely wild. Not just a home race for Lowe's, a home race for all of that Crescent Yamaha team as well. But the man of the moment is Tom Sykes. There he is stopping to chat to some of the Kawasaki boys there. Everybody coming out to congratulate the race winner, ending that run of race wins traded by Jonathan Ray and Chaz Davies. Tom Sykes back on the top step of the podium as the hugs are coming before he's even gotten to Parc Fermé. There you can see the Japanese members of that KRT team. Despite the crash of Jonathan Ray, they still have something to celebrate. As that man there, the number 66 is back in number 1 and now 50 points behind his teammate. Parc Fermé explodes rather into a roar of applause as Tom Sykes wheels his bike back into the number 1 spot for the first time since the Laguna Seca last year. what a race. So much drama. We knew that this man would be fast, but we couldn't predict what was going to happen with Jonathan Ray and Chaz Davies, nor could we predict what would happen to that man just over Tom Sykes' shoulder. Lowe's. I'm almost speechless at the effort Lowe's managed to put in. As we said, that mistake by Melandri allowing him to close an almost impossible gap in the final corner. Tom Sykes is pretty surprised to see Lowe's in there as well. A brilliant weekend for all three men on the podium so far, but it is still Jonathan Ray there, the Lowe's fan club going ballistic up on the hill. There you can see Ron Haslam congratulating Lowe's as well. Everybody just quickly chatting to their teams. Marco Melandri, he'll start from pole position for race 2, but he did miss out on the podium due to that mistake. Just chatting in Italian to his team, talking about a lot of movement with the front end of that bike. He looks pretty tired after that one. Not too pleased with how that result went at all. How could you be? A 1.5-second gap. Here is that moment again. Watch the back of your screens. Melandri just gets pushed wide on corner exit, runs onto the grass, no doubt has to shut off, takes a long time to get back on track, which allows Lowe's to just slide through with ease and get that 3rd position. You can see a couple more people running to congratulate everybody. A good recovery for Chaz Davies, but once again walks away from another race, wondering what could have been if it weren't for that fateful fall at turn 12. There you can see Roman Ramos trudging back. Ramos with another decent point scoring position. Can we hear anything from Davies?
I felt pretty good when I got back on again. It was easy to do that time.
Yeah, we just heard Davies saying he felt pretty good when he got back on. Here is that crash. Goes into Goddard's and just loses the front. A classic Donington crash, unfortunately, for the Welsh rider. As he said, was able to remount and set some pretty competitive times. But who knows what could have been with Jonathan Ray crashing. We're guessing due to tyre issues. Very strange to see Jonathan Ray suffer a crash like that. Can't quite hear anything else from Chaz Davies there. We can see Leon Haslam. It's been a long time since we had a wild card up on the podium in World Superbikes. Here he is with Steve English.
Leon Haslam, a wild card in the truest sense today. From 8th on the grid, managed to get a podium. Did you think there was a chance of it?
Yesterday's pace, I felt pretty comfortable to maybe challenge for that 3rd place. Today we had a bit of a disaster. We had a bit of a vibrating problem and a stopping problem, and we kind of put it back to yesterday's settings, but with the track temperature being so different, it was behaving very differently. But yeah, you know, obviously Chaz and Johnny crashed, but you know, I was pretty happy with what I did. You know, I kind of was a lonely position and I was just managing the guys behind, but you know, over the moon, so happy for Pacetti Racing. You know, they're a fantastic team, and you know, JG for giving me this opportunity as well.
Thanks, Leon. Well done.
Long time since I've seen that man there up on the podium in a World Superbike race, but he proved he still has it. And no doubt he'll return to British Superbikes with added confidence as he and Shaky Byrne battle for the 2017 title. Of course, there's a couple of other boys in there who could surprise. Taddy Mercado, an incredible 7th place for the Argentinian rider. Held off the likes of Marco Melandri and Michael van der Mark for a fair few laps, and once again ends as the top Aprilia, which is a huge surprise. There, we definitely thought that Milwaukee team would be a lot stronger, but the Milwaukee team walk away with 12th and 13th place. Leon Camier, another top 6 finish for the British rider. Decent result for him, he says. Will now start on the front row of the grid. There we go, that one's for Nicky. Nicky Hayden treated to a fantastic race here in Donington Park. Drama and action from the word go. We saw riders get pushed wide, riders make comebacks, riders fall when it looked like they had it in the bag. Always unpredictable in World Superbikes. Jonathan Ray can't rest on his laurels just yet. That lead getting cut by a 3rd, down to 50 points, as we get ready to chat to Miracle Man Lowe's.
Alex Lowe's, first podium since 2015, but you had to work for that one.
Yeah, obviously Leon came up the inside lap 1, and I sort of went off track, Eugene hit me, and that was to be expected from Leon. You know, he's there as a wild card, he's a little bulldog, and he's one of my best mates away from the track. So,
yeah, he still owes me a tenner. I'm definitely going to make sure, from golf the other day, I'm definitely going to make sure I get it now. But no, it's a fantastic race. The bike was great, and yeah, we probably had the pace for 4th or 5th. We got a bit lucky with Mark on the last lap, but you've got to put yourself in that position. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. I think that all of us, everyone that finished behind as well, we're riding for Nicky this weekend. And you know, I was thinking on the top of Hollywood when the bike was sliding a lot, reminded me of him. So cheers, mate.
Thanks, Alice. Well done.
A beautiful sentiment there from Lowe's, picturing Nicky Hayden mid-race when the rear end was sliding, of course. Nicky Hayden loved those fast left-hand corners. Here is the moment that gave Lowe's that podium. And a nice little win bonus for Lowe's, an extra tenner from Haslam. On it again, Lowe's. He certainly was on it this weekend. Hopefully he can do it in race 2. He'll now start down from the 3rd row of the grid. But he proved he can make a comeback. So starting down there is going to be a slight bit easier than starting from 20th where he was. There we go. Once again, Tom Sykes' biggest fan refusing to be let go there in Parc Fermé. Beautiful to see the family environment here in World Superbikes. There you can just see Neil Hodgson, a former World Superbike champion, chatting to Lowe's. Those two working very closely together for the last couple of years. There's Eugene Laverty just walking back to his box. Tom Sykes just shaking some hands as he gets ready to talk to Steve English down in Parc Fermé. The race 1 winner there, just congratulating absolutely everybody there, but now he's with Steve.
Tom Sykes, a lot of congratulations down here in Parc Fermé, but how much does this win mean for you? 9 in a row here at Donington.
Yeah, fantastic. Had to work for it, but like I just said to some of the other guys, can't really start the interview. It's not, I don't feel it proper without obviously giving my condolences to Nicky's family, and it's very, very strange not having my next door neighbour here with his great smile. So it's been slightly strange all weekend. You know, me and my brother have noticed that, and you know, so obviously in a small way this one's basically for him, but overall the weekend has been good. Really nice to continue our form. Free practice has been going really nice, and then I said to my crew chief last night, tomorrow I'll do my side and give you a little bit extra. So bike wasn't working very nice in the windy conditions, you know, I was really struggling, but overall managed to find a few things, and when I passed Jonathan, went back into the 27s, which was really nice in these conditions. So overall happy, definitely good result for the championship, and now we need to keep working. Tomorrow's another day, try and improve the bike a little bit, but enjoy the moment, and cheers.
Thanks, Tom. Well done.
Again, a beautiful sentiment for Hayden and his family, and a beautiful race for Tom Sykes. That was the race-winning overtake. We then saw Jonathan Rea drop like a stone with what looked to be rear tyre issues. When we saw Rea crash, the first thing he did was go over and check that rear Pirelli tyre there. We just see Sykes slipping up the inside. Jonathan Rea tried to respond at Goddard's, but Tom Sykes just slammed the door on him. Of course, the racing action continues tomorrow here at Donington Park at 10:45 a.m. We kick the day off with World Supersport 300. Then World Supersport begins at about midday. Stock 1000 starting at 1:15, and then race 2 for the World Superbikes beginning at 3 p.m. local time. If you aren't in the UK, you can go to worldsbk.com to get all those times converted. There you can see the Nicky Hayden t-shirts on as Haslam and Sykes share a congratulations. A beautiful, beautiful tribute yet again. Of course, we started the day with a minute silence where all of the paddock and all of the fans gathered round to remember the Kentucky kid. That race was for you, Nicky. Hopefully you enjoyed it, and hopefully we can have another great race tomorrow to honour the Kentucky legend, Nicky Hayden. Here is the Pirelli Best Lap Award. 6 points for Jonathan Rea, 3 for Chaz Davies, 2 for Marco Melandri. Of course, those are awarded for setting the fastest lap of the race. And those points don't add and don't subtract either from the overall championship standings. As we make our way up into a very windy podium here in Donington Park. The clouds are looking very, very dark and gloomy. Parking may be a bit of a nightmare to try and get out of this evening, especially if it rains. But a dream for all 3 men up on the podium there today. Simply fantastic stuff from Sykes, Lowe's and Haslam. And what a fitting tribute once again to Nikki Hayden, one of the most dramatic races, one of the most exciting races we've had all year in honour of the Kentucky kid, as we now take to the podium to celebrate Lowe's, Haslam and Sykes. There you can see the wind blowing everybody's hair and shirts. Kenan Sforglu, of course, part of that Pachetti outfit. He'll be looking to go one better than Leon Haslam tomorrow and try and take 3 wins in a row. There's Christopher Tate, the managing director of Donington Park, handing out the 3rd place trophy to Lowe's. There is fiancé and his team applauding him. And applause is definitely what he deserves after getting punted off track there by his great mate, Leon Haslam. As he said, he'll definitely be getting that tenner off Haslam. A fantastic return for Haslam to the World Superbike Championship. Definitely going to be in a few people's books for next year. Return to BSB, proved he can still win races and has come back as strong as ever. And that man right there in the middle of your screens is as strong as he's ever been. 9 straight wins in Donington Park for Tom Sykes. He hoists the trophy high in the sky to celebrate returning to the top step of the podium and rewriting the history books once again. We hear a plane fly overhead. There we can see Ishigaki there from KHI, Kawasaki Heavy Industries. He's up there to accept the team awards. We then will hear the British national anthem for Sykes and the Japanese national anthem for Kawasaki as well. Beautiful day here of racing in Donington Park. The weather wasn't so beautiful, but the action out on track was a real nail-biter as we get set for the British national anthem. Always great to have a home rider winning in front of the home crowd. That anthem would have been extra special as we prepare for the Japanese anthem to celebrate Kawasaki's victory. Huge smile there from Tom Sykes. No Prosecco, of course, will be sprayed in respect to Nicky Hayden and his family. But as we said, the best way to honour Hayden is by going out and producing racing exactly like what we saw here today. And there you can see the 69 up on the podium one last time. Tributes pouring in from all around the world for Nicky Hayden, as we get set to do it all again tomorrow in race 2, which will start at 3 p.m. local time here at Donington Park. Kawasaki up on the podium once again in a 1-2, but it was Alex Lowe's who broke the Kawasaki and Ducati stranglehold in World Superbikes. Here we go. Coming up tomorrow, there's going to be plenty more action here at Donington Park. What can Chaz Davies do? Can he salvage a result? It's going to be another fantastic 23-lap affair around Donington Park. We had action from the word go. Disaster for Jake Dixon there, and huge drama out the front as 2 race leaders crashed out at various points. There were some big moments for Jonathan Ray, but no moments bigger for Chaz Davies as he slipped off that huge moment there. Jonathan Ray, which gifted Tom Sykes victory here at Donington Park. There you can see we've just managed to dodge the rain here in the UK. Hopefully you and I, Steve, will be able to make a quick escape before we get absolutely drowned in the car park. as we prepare to run down the race results and then the championship standings. Of course, it was Tom Sykes who rewrote the history books. 9 straight wins here at Donington Park, ahead of Leon Haslam. Alex Lowe's Marco Melandri will start race 2 from pole, ahead of Vandermark and Leon Camia. Leandro Mercado, Chaz Davies and Jordi Torres will make up the second row of the grid. So Davies in a decent spot at least to fight for the podium. Flores, he'll start in 12th, ahead of Ramos, Savadori, Laverty in 13th after dropping Lycostone, Krumenacker, Rafael De Rosa picking up the last point ahead of Ayrton Badavini, Alex De Angelis and Jezek there in 18th spot. Then it was the first DNF of the year for Jonathan Ray. Stefan Bridle forced to retire with an issue. Ricky Russo and Jake Dixon also pulling out of the race. 6 straight DNFs for Ricky Russo now. Disappointing to see Dixon retire after a strong qualifying and then a strong start to the race as well. It is still Jonathan Ray who leads the championship, 50 points clear of Tom Sykes and 66 points clear of Chaz Davies, who once again fell while leading. Marco Melandri looking pretty solid in 4th. Lowe's there, 20 points ahead of Flores. Eugene Laverty in 10th, ahead of Ramos. Stefan Bridle, Leandro Mercado moves up 1 position. Lorenzo Savadori in 15th, ahead of Randy Krumenacker. Alex De Angelis, Leon Haslam jumps straight into 18th place overall with 20 points, thanks to that incredible 2nd place. It is Kawasaki that lead the way with 420 points, 114 ahead in the team's championship of Aruba.it, Racing Ducati, and then 221 points ahead of their next closest rival. It is Kawasaki, of course, leading the way ahead of Ducati. Yamaha there in 3rd, ahead of BMW, Aprilia, MV Agusta, and then Honda, 200 points off the manufacturer's lead. Difficult season for Honda. Hopefully Stefan Bridle can salvage a result tomorrow and find a bit more luck, as we now leave you with the highlights from race 1 here in Donington Park.